Welcome, everyone, to the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball Show, a proud member of Empire and the Empire Media Podcast Network. Your host, Doc, hosting it today. Just for the intro, I got my normal crew here. I got Coach James Lewis, the guy who always has rotating jerseys in his background and probably hasn't gotten a haircut since 7th grade, which is when he got his AOL email. What's going on, Coach?
Yeah, got to keep things in stock. Yeah, point guard is the theme in the background. So you see a little Trae Young, a little Doncic going on, and they will definitely be in that top 5, top 10 tier. And if they're not top 5, we're fighting.
All right. A little spoiler. Maybe we'll get the fisticuffs ready. In the upper right-hand corner, I have the man that always has a brick wall behind him because he likes to keep it 100. It is Mr. Brad Kilgore, the man of Monkey Knife Fight props. What's going on, my man?
Nice plug. Yeah, if you guys are into NFL prop bets, make sure to check out our YouTube on Triple Play Fantasy.
Yeah, good plug there. You see enough of us three, though, and in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a special guest, and we welcome in a man that is no stranger to the game of basketball. When some ask why, he chooses to ask why not. He is the host of the Noble and Roosh show. It is a good thing that we are not in medieval times, because he would be at the bottom of the feudal system. This man goes by 3 words: ball is life. We welcome in Zach Noble. What is going on?
Love it, man. That's a hell of an intro for sure. And I'm rock bottom. The Noble Romans, we're here. But I love the jerseys. I love the brick wall. Hopefully I can stir it up a little bit, but I'm always down for some rankings.
Yeah. And Zach,
let's do it, man.
Before we dive into the show, I just wanted to, give you the floor a little bit, tell the listeners, a little bit about your podcast, how you got into the game, kind of just what brought you to be a basketball junkie.
You got it. So, loved the game growing up, played it till about 10th grade. I would have kept playing, had the game to keep playing, had a rare disease that kept me out of it past that. So I found other ways to get involved in it. I always wanted to be a sports agent since like 6th grade. Sent some guys overseas. Was close to representing a couple NFL players. So I was trying to get in any way possible, built a lot of relationships that way. Had a lot of top-notch relationships, but I was never able to turn that into a full-time career. So I found other ways to get involved in the NBA world, as that was my biggest passion in life. And 4 years ago, I decided to get into podcasting, met a partner in Kansas City, and we had a show for 3 years, and it was great, and threw the ball's life and grew constantly. And we ended up deciding to go our own ways and found a new partner. He's a lawyer out of California, big Rockets fan, and things are rolling pretty good on this end. My first show, we went 206 episodes. This one, we're about 48 in. Overall, I've had 180 plus guests and then 65 plus current NBA players. So that's kind of our niche, just getting great guests and talking the history of the game and current day. I mean, we're big 90s guys. We like that generation probably the best more than anything. We're big LeBron, Kobe, and KG guys. That's not LeBron, MJ, sorry. MJ, Kobe, and KG guys. That's what really got me into the game. I had season tickets to the Timberwolves every year of the KG era. So that's kind of my thing. I'm a diehard Timberwolves fan, the worst franchise in sports. So I'll hold that title pretty high, but just kind of enjoying the slow growth and the Anthony Edwards punchlines from here to there. That's all we got going for us right now. So I got to embrace that smile that lights up the room, and maybe we can turn into some W's here and there.
I was gonna say, Ant's not a punchline. He's doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy about the rookie year. He should have easily won rookie of the year, but
thank you.
No,
games played is the thing. It matters. Availability really matters to me. But I can
already tell you're a homer right now. I love this.
Go check out my latest feed. I just put out a 2020 redraft. LaMelo Ball, I had him number 1 before the draft. Still have LaMelo Ball number 1.
So how's he rookie of the year?
Look at Michael Carter-Williams won Rookie of the Year, man. That means nothing for the future going forward.
He should have won Rookie of the Year. He had the best season, even playing the amount of games he played.
Anthony Edwards finished the year with incredible efficiency. I mean, the last half of the year, overall, his statistics were good enough, and I'm okay with LaMelo winning. I'm not going to put up a huge fight for that one, but I just think games played, and Anthony Edwards did more than enough to prove he's going to be a dude going forward and very worthy of holding that title. So I wouldn't change. If you asked me if I could have LaMelo Ball in the Wolves, I wouldn't take him, but I do think LaMelo Ball is going to have the better career.
Is that because Anthony Edwards reportedly may have grown 2 inches over the summer?
Damn right. MJ's coming for real. Like, no, he said
6'6" now.
Yeah, he said he's coming for that title in the offseason, and that dude talks mad game. I mean, he can swim like Michael Phelps. We know how it goes, but
of course.
He could have pitched in the majors.
Trash ball.
Yeah, he's got
First
it all.
Teamer.
But no, there's no better personality in basketball right now. So I really hope his game can back it up and just give us the light that we need here, because it's been really dark for many years. Like our family stopped with the season tickets after KG left, and it was perfect timing. I mean, I've been to every playoff game in the KG era, so I'm obsessed and I'll never leave. But
so wait, do you remember the Troy Hudson 37-point game in the 2003 playoffs?
Like the back of my hand.
Oh, that's how you know you're a fan.
Zach,
that's my generation.
I'm a big proponent of Minnesota just letting. I think Edwards has shown that he's got what it takes to carry a franchise, if tasked to.
Yep.
What do you think about them trading Cat and then letting Ant just spin?
I've been one of the biggest Cat naysayers, you can say, skeptics. I mean, the last 2 years, I thought he was going to take off right after Jimmy left, and I was super high on him at that point, had him number 1 before the draft. I was all on Cat, but his personality is what it is, and I don't think he's got the mentality to carry the torch of a franchise, especially this type of franchise. So at the end of the day, he's going to be a great third option, second option, but he's never going to be a number 1 in my estimation. Yeah, he's a transcending talent, but I'm a mindset guy and mentality, and you can look back at my draft boards, and I weigh it higher than most. I really do, and it's a really hard thing to judge and guess, but I try to listen to a lot of interviews. I try to figure out anyway. I mean, fourth quarter, the way they act in the second half of games, I mean, that's where a lot of mentality comes in, and Cat veers from that moment. He kind of always has, and I just don't think he's the guy. So I'm all for trading Cat, but I'm not in any rush to do it.
What would you take for him?
A lot. I mean, he's worth a lot because, yeah, if you put him on a lot of teams right now, he makes him an automatic contender if he's the second guy. Like, I think he's that good, where if he's the second or third guy, the pressure's not on him. Like, he's going to elevate you to another level. But I'd love to see him in Atlanta with Trae Young. That's one of my favorite destinations.
That is good.
Luka, I'd love him there, or I'd love
Charlotte.
him. Charlotte would be sick with LaMelo. It would be sick. But
would you take like PJ Washington and like some first rounders? That's what I'm saying. Like, what would you give up?
So from Charlotte, the package would need to be, if it's not LaMelo Ball, obviously it's not going to be. Yeah, no. So we have a plethora of guards. We don't need Terry Rozier. We don't need. No. So I'd take Miles Bridges. I'd take PJ Washington, and it'd probably be about 5 or 6 picks. That's probably what it would take. And
even if they're like second rounders?
Hell no. Think about it. I mean,
Brad, good thing you're not a GM, man. This is
no, I'm saying it's going to be hard to trade him if he's only going to take top flight.
Nah, I don't think so. I just think people value Cat's skill set like no other. And people still think he's going to be a top 15 guy in this league for a long time. I mean, look at Bradley Beal. Like, he's, 30 around that area, and they're still valuing him like almost a top 10 type talent where, I mean, it's 5 picks-ish, I mean, for his age. So at the end of the day, the value's been set. The market's been set there. So
we're Wizards fans here, by the way, so we got our own homerism over there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it, but here's the thing. You got to choose a timeline, whether it's Cat and D'Lo or you got to choose Ant and Jaden. I'm all in on the Ant and Jaden, but at the same time, you don't rush a trade. It's just every decision going forward has to be about one of those pairings. And so I don't think they can work, and I don't think the timelines necessarily match up, but no need
That's
to rush it.
that's
I don't
interesting
think
that
so either.
you included Jaden in there. I didn't know that he'd be, considered like part of the core future going forward. I like him a lot. He's really talented.
That you must be watching and paying a little attention, because I'm telling you, Jaden McDaniels, that guy's got like Jonathan Isaac ceiling type,
Yeah,
like whatever you think J.I.'s got, and I'm as high on
I
J.I. as
agree.
anybody.
I agree.
Jaden McDaniels, I mean, he can guard literally 2 through 5. I mean, maybe eventually some ones, but he's got to bulk up to guard more 5s, and he will. But the
They
dude,
started giving him minutes towards the end of the year.
for sure, and
Yeah.
the dude can score. He's athletic, and he's got a lot going for him. But Chris Finch, I think he's going to be a lot better at developing than we've had in the past. I'm not ready to be all on the Chris Finch board, but we'll see. We'll know pretty quickly as the season goes. But I truly look at Jaden as a cornerstone going forward. So everybody around the league is just like, oh, Jaden McDaniels is a throw-in for Ben Simmons. No, we actually really value him here. And
Yeah.
I know there's not very many fans out there that watch the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I don't blame them. But Anthony Edwards is box office, and Cat's fun to watch fill up the stat sheet. So, I mean, we're definitely making some noise when it comes to being a league pass team, I think.
Would you do Cat for Ben Simmons straight up?
Hell no. No, absolutely not. I mean,
They already got a good defensive backcourt with Okogie and Beverly.
I would do
They do.
Ben and Tobias. But that doesn't do much for.
It's a lot of cash.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cat and Embiid could work. I think the talent would exceed the fit there, but it'd just be a weird thing.
Yeah, it would.
I
It
mean,
would be weird.
Philadelphia, yeah, it's 2 years ago we were talking Cat for Embiid, and a lot of people would have done that. But I mean, now Embiid's proven to be so much better and kind of a cornerstone. It's just some people think there's still some people out there in Philadelphia that I know would trade Embiid because they don't believe in his injuries. I mean,
Yes, I would.
Minnesota would have to add a little more for that, but when it comes to Cat, I think my two favorite fits for him leaving are Phoenix and Atlanta are the two teams I would pinpoint. Just because Trae Young and Devin Booker, I think they're great fits for Cat, and then you can build defenses around those guys. You'd have your two offensive talents there, and they have the best packages I think they can offer, like a DeAndre Ayton as a starting point for Cat, and John Collins coming back from Atlanta, and then build the package from there.
I like that.
But it's really hard other than that to find, because if you go to like the Knicks, then Julius Randle and him get to be a tough pairing because there's no front court defense there. And I know Indiana would love to have him, but they don't got shit I'd want. So, I mean, everybody would want him, I think, outside of Denver, outside of Philadelphia. But yeah, it's a fun topic to talk about, and I can talk about it all day, but don't need to hijack the show there.
I was going to say, that's funny. We didn't have talking to Karl Anthony-Towns trades in the script, but sometimes the best things are impromptu. Coach, I'll give it back to you to get this show on track.
All right, so a little news and notes about, I guess, a more elite Western Conference team, and that's Aaron Gordon pencils in 4 years, $92 million. Denver's known for not going over the luxury, but with MPJ due for an extension next season, we're going to see like either they're going to have to move some parts around, or they're actually all in on this team and they see a championship window and they're actually going to be willing to pay over. What do we think about this contract signing? And we're going to start with Zach.
Yeah, so I've been as high on Aaron Gordon as anybody from when he came into the draft, and I've kind of been an apologist for him. I've gotten a lot of slack and just people coming at me for many, many years because I kept putting him as most improved player for a while, and he just didn't improve for a while. Last year was the first year, though, if you really paid attention to Aaron Gordon, that he didn't have slight improvements. It was always either defense or just playmaking rebounding a little bit. He was making really small improvements, but they weren't to the leap of Pascal Siakam or Kawhi Leonard type leaps. And the guy's got all the tools and the gifts. I just don't think he's putting it together. I don't know if he has necessarily the mentality that you need to be like a max contract player that I thought he was eventually going to be. But he's a perfect fit for Denver. I loved the trade when they made it. I still love his fit going forward. They need his athleticism, his defense. He's a great front court running mate with Joker. And I love the Denver Nuggets if everybody reaches their full potential or Aaron Gordon reaches just 75 to 80% of it. I think they can be a legit title contender this year or next year. But that contract, it was a little questionable on my behalf because they weren't competing with anybody. They had the cap space to do it, and it's not going to hurt their cap as much as people look at the numbers from a first glance, because it's not all going towards the hard cap or what have you. But I do think there's a good chance it could turn out to be a bad contract. It still could turn out that way if Aaron Gordon, his time in Denver was the worst stats he put up in his entire career since his second year in the leagues. And he's been in the league 7 years now. So that's saying something. And a lot of them were the worst since his first year. But it was a COVID year. I give most people a pass during COVID. They traded for him because they were planning on paying him. So most people expected they were going to pay him at least that, if not more, if he performed. So at the end of the day, it's I give it a C. Really, that's the type of grade I give it. So I want him to be great because I love what Denver's got going, but there's a lot of question marks there with him going backwards in his time there.
It's a shame we didn't get to see that team fully healthy and together, because I think that it was a pivotal moment trying to see what it would all look like with their top five. But not only Jamal Murray going down, but at the point guard, it seemed like every night they were losing another person, and then Barton was fighting injury. So we really just saw a wounded Nuggets team that looked primed to do some things well. And maybe Aaron Gordon's numbers weren't as spectacular, but he definitely had an impact on them winning basketball games. And he's a really good passer and he defends the tough matchup. So it would have been an interesting look, because we all know that Jokic isn't out there for his defense. So you need as much help as you can get from your surrounded pieces. Brad, what do you think about this signing and I guess the outlook of the Nuggets in the foreseeable future?
It's interesting because, like all the things we're saying about him, like nice passer, super talented, but hasn't put it all together. He can guard the tough matchups. All these things that we're saying about him are like potential things, and he hasn't actually put it all together and shown that impact. And for you to pay $494 for that, it seems kind of absurd to me. I think they're making the bet that when Jamal Murray comes back, he's going to be the missing piece, and that's a fine bet to make. I don't know that I'd make it. When they traded for him, I was like, yeah, this is a great pick. He can pretty much guard 2 through 5 if given the opportunity, and he started to take more threes, and I think that's going to add another element to his game. But when he got to Denver, he was good defensively, but the offensive statistics just went away. I think he became like the third in the pecking order, and he just accepted that role, and that role was relegated to just shooting, open threes or taking like pick and roll layups, and that's not what you pay $494 for. So I don't know what it's going to look like when Jamal Murray comes back, but that's a really expensive contract, and it becomes super hard to get rid of if he's going to have another season like he just had. So I don't love it.
Brad and Coach, I want to say 2 points you guys touched on there, and that's one, Jamal Murray being out is a huge factor here, because everybody always said in his first 6 years in Orlando, it's because he doesn't have a point guard. And
Right.
Yet we never saw it. And everybody thinks he's a guy that needs a point guard for pick and rolls and just setting them up and getting them to his spots, because he's not a guy that needs to have a high usage or should have a high usage and control the ball as much as they had him do in Orlando. And that kind of put too much pressure on him and hurt him when Vucevic was controlling the offense a lot of the times there. So the fit wasn't there. So I'd love to still see him with a true point guard. Maybe it could unlock the best version of Aaron Gordon, but also defensively, huge bridge from going from Paul Millsap as he was aging to young, fresh legs and Aaron Gordon to be that defensive specialist guarding the other team's best player. And you're right, their defense still remained really good with Aaron Gordon being there, which is weird because the rest of their personnel doesn't necessarily match up to, say, great defense.
He was kind of a tweener though too, even defensively, because it's like, you look at the Trailblazers series, like he couldn't guard Dame, he couldn't guard CJ, he could guard Covington, but why would you want to? He couldn't guard Nurkic, but
one team
Jokic
you don't
was doing that
necessarily
anyway. Exactly, yeah, it was like all the matchups they're gonna have in the Western Conference. He seems rather unnecessary, so I don't know.
The Lakers and the Clippers are two that
that's
they would.
exactly like you'd want him to guard LeBron. And then if you think that he's gonna, I don't like that's very hard to pay $4.94 for a LeBron stopper that we don't know is a LeBron stopper, and who's like aging. Like how many more years are we gonna have to deal with LeBron stoppers? So I don't know.
So here's my thing. I think you pay for the future, like, and I'm gonna use, we're talking about being fans of mediocre teams. Like the Wizards gave Bertans a 5-year, $80 million contract, and it's obviously less per year, but you're tied into a longer time period. Aaron Gordon is 26 right now, so he's going to be 30 at the end of his contract, and a lot of his game is based off athleticism. And yeah, we talk about his stats going down for the Nuggets, but he actually played the lowest minutes per game, 26, since his second year with Orlando. He took 8.2 shots per game, so like he wasn't putting himself in a position to have these stats. Now, I think what you signed him for is his defense, because Jokic obviously is a great offensive player. He's the facilitator. You hope that Jamal Murray comes back from his ACL tear. Michael Porter Jr. looks like a bona fide scorer. Even Austin Rivers can give you some buckets off the bench. Monte Morris can give you some scoring. I think if Aaron Gordon can be your primary defender for the LeBrons, for the Kawhis, for, even if you put him on someone like Donovan Mitchell that maybe isn't as fast, but is a primary ball handler, I think you can make it work. Ultimately, if the Nuggets, I think, get to the Western Conference, or if they get to the NBA Finals, it's a success, because that's the most that they've had probably in the last 20, 25 years.
But my thing is, like, if you're gonna pay $4.94, you're interested in paying top dollar, and you think you're only a piece away, why not go get somebody better or more versatile, like a Ben Simmons or something, and pay
because
close
you're
to
gonna
the
have to
same
give
amount?
Because you're gonna have to give up more assets for that.
But they don't. But it's assets they're not even using. They go like 6 or 7 deep.
And see, with getting Aaron Gordon too, they're playing with cap that they wouldn't have otherwise. They can go deeper into the cap with signing Aaron Gordon.
That's true.
So that money, I mean, it might equal like $15 million on the open market, for instance.
So you get some wiggle room to see what it looks like with Michael Porter Jr., right? Like I said, he's due for the extension at the end of this season. So let's see what that looks like together.
But that's the thing. Like Gordon's he's gonna want more usage this year and take away from MPJ potentially. But if Ben Simmons is a distributor,
I think he's a little comfortable in being this role guy.
You think so?
I mean, yeah. Well, and it really goes back to Jamal Murray, because that pick and roll with him and Jokic is probably one of the most threatening things in the entire NBA as far as potency scoring. And if he can just play his role now, when he was in Orlando on 4.5 3-point shots a game, he was making 1.7. That's 37.5. Like that's like acceptable when you're bringing other attributes to the game, like passing and playing defense. But then when he got to Denver, he was 0.7 on a 2.7 a game. That's 26%. So I don't know what happened between Orlando, the comfortability, maybe just kind of being the guy for them, and knowing that he was a trade asset. Then coming over to Denver, where maybe he wasn't as comfortable with that. Maybe that takes some time. Maybe it takes some time to see the passes that Jokic comes with. You do have Jeff Green to kind of help buddy with defending. JaMychal Green as well. They got McGee to back up. Like they really have, and I really like Nyshawn Highland. I think that he's going to contribute this first year. I think he's a good bucket getter from that bench area. But when is Murray going to come back? It is a question, but I think that that's a movable contract. I don't think that you dug so deep with Aaron Gordon that you can't move that later on. Sometimes you really have to fit contracts, and that's a high dollar contract, and who knows, maybe those might be the trading points around a huge deal like him and Michael Porter Jr. for like a superstar. Who knows? But I like what they're doing, and I like that they spend a little bit of money knowing that they have the reigning MVP, and they do have a shot here.
I mean, you take a chance when you do. Like, Toronto traded arguably the most notable player in their franchise history, DeMar DeRozan, who holds almost all records for a 1-year rental of Kawhi. If they don't win the championship, everybody says, why'd you get rid of Coach of the Year Dwayne Casey? Why'd you ship out this? And it ended up paying off. You got to take that gamble sometimes in basketball.
I'd say this one's a little different, but
a little bit.
No, but here to your point, they did it because they already planned on doing it. You know, they when they trade for him, they knew this was coming up, and this is what they had to pay for Aaron Gordon. Hopefully, they got a little less than what they were originally thinking if he showed out for them. But they're also capitalizing on their core, being they just signed Jamal Murray, being they're going to sign Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon fits perfectly there. So they got to give it one big go with all these guys together. And, I mean, I truly think Jamal Murray is going to have a huge impact on Aaron Gordon. I'm not willing to give up on him just yet because I love Mike Malone. I mean, he's a top 5 coach in my estimation, and their
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
that's a great
development team's insane.
If there's any team that can develop players, it's Toronto and it's Denver. And I think if you're going to develop somebody, you want somebody that's got those tools, and Gordon has all the tools. It's just it'll be interesting to see how he's utilized. So I see why they signed him for what they signed him. That's probably his market value. I just don't know if it's the best fit, judging off last year, but we'll see.
We shall. I guess
you're not certain on the Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. because you think they're both 4s or something, or where's the fit?
Yeah, I think they're both 4s. I think Porter can play the 3, but I just don't.
That kid is lights out.
If I'm going to pay,
he could be a big 2 if only he could defend on that other end.
Yeah,
offensively, he has the skill set of a 2 guard. Honestly.
Of course, but if I'm going to pay $494, it's not just for defense. Like it's just not.
Yeah, in a league that defense is becoming less important by the year.
Well, it's not that it's becoming less important. It's just for $494, you need to do more. Like I need to have a lot more usage. Like MPJ is going to get his usage. Jokic's going to get his usage. Murray's going to get his usage.
You're right. He's not passing like Draymond or Ben Simmons. He's not passing and playmaking like those guys.
He's not that pivotal piece for $494. I just think you can get defensive options cheaper, but he's worth it.
Last thing I'll say on Aaron Gordon. Yes, all of his statistics decline outside of field goal percentage and true shooting percentage, were his career high. Pretty easy off 8 attempts, though.
Yeah.
Understanding your role. But to Zach's point, I guess our last point on this is in those fourth quarter moments, in those deciding factors, you don't see the best of Aaron Gordon. He shies a little bit away from those situations, and that's truly what you miss in the killer of Jamal Murray, because he does not shy away from those moments. And we've seen it big time. No, of course not. Of course not. Needless to say on Jokic.
But he has to shy away. Like, what do you want? Aaron Gordon taking the last shot over Murray or Jokic or MPJ?
Yeah, there's other factors in how you can, play your role towards, in the game. Jimmy Butler's not always shooting the last shot on his triumphs in those final moments. But it's in a dry week. This is kind of like the hottest topic, is that mutually agreeing that it's best interest for Houston Rockets to not play John Wall for his trade value, and also for John Wall to move on, as they've decided to go all in on Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. as their starting backcourt going forward.
Sengun.
Oh, and then you got Sengun, who Brad said is a possible future Hall of Famer. Can we find a trade for John Wall? Does anything make sense? Do we see a buyout in the future? Zach, what's your feeling on this? And do you have like an ideal location to see John Wall, who showed some flashes last year in Houston? Of course, he couldn't finish the season, but he showed some flashes of his old self.
So I wanted John Wall traded, midway through the year, what have you, but That trade for Russell Westbrook was just weird in general. I'm as big of a KPJ guy as there is out there. I truly believe it, and Christian Wood in general. I love what the Rockets got going. I had KPJ top 10 before the draft. He went 30. I'd still take him 3 or 4 in a redraft. I think his ceiling's that high. It's a mentality thing for me. That's the big question marks on him. Has he got his shit straight? But with that said, John Wall, if Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, and we're finding out, I mean, yeah, those guys are way higher talents at the time, but people around the league were saying those contracts are the worst in the league, and yet they still found places for those, and because they were worried about him aging. But John Wall is not that great right now in general. He showed plenty of flashes. If you watched a bunch of Rockets games, not a lot of people did, but I thought John Wall can get back to his peak 1 or 2 more years. I think athletically, that's tough. I don't think he's going to be that Fox Wall, but he still can knock down shots and be the playmaker and a solid defender. And so I think he can still be valuable for a team. Yes, there's trades out there for anybody. I truly believe that. I'm a firm believer every contract is tradable, just with how creative these GMs are. The only places, though, this is as hard as it gets, because point guards, as we're going to discuss today, is the deepest position in the league, probably deepest in league history, to be honest. So you look around the league, it's like, first of all, John Wall only wants to go to a winner, but only winners want him, unless it's the Oklahoma City Thunder and can screw a team over for draft picks or figure out finagle some type of asset out of them. So that's the only option that way. Yeah, you got it. So then I bring up this list of destinations. I think Denver, Dallas, New Orleans, and the Clippers are the only teams that remotely make sense to me. Maybe, but doubtful. I'd say Toronto, Indiana, Orlando, and Philadelphia would be the other ones. But those are just, I'm reaching and trying to get creative there. He was just with Paul George the other night. They're buddies. They like to hang out. And I think it made a lot more sense, besides Reggie Jackson going off in the playoffs and depending where you like Terrence Mann. But they got the contracts to shell it out. So I'm really starting to come around on the idea of the Clippers again. I think it can motivate Paul George to stay at his MVP chase, whatever you think Paul George's ceiling is. I think bringing John Wall there would motivate them and get Steve Ballmer all riled up for another year, because we have no idea what Kawhi Leonard's doing. So I think that's my favorite John Wall fit. And I think the Rockets can get back pieces that would make sense for them too and their future going forward.
No, they were 1. Dallas was 2 for me. For the packages where contracts could kind of make sense. Well, they have Bled, so Eric Bledsoe would be on the move again, and I don't know. He gets traded more than he's playing games at this point. That would be Eric Bledsoe, Luke Kennard, who's in double digits. Then you got Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka. So a pairing of 3 of those guys or 2 of those guys with the Clippers eating more money, but you really have to kind of almost package 3 of them together for it to make sense. I think the Clippers with Paul George and a healthy Kawhi Leonard, of course, that's probably not something that we'll see next year. But of course, John Wall's contract is 2 years. He's still got the $92 million on it. But this would kind of be going all in for the following year in point guard play. And yes, some of his athleticism still isn't there, but he is a smart player, and I still think he's capable of defending the ball. And the guy drives time. So I would like to see that out of all the options to the Clippers. And then the other one is one problem for another problem, and that's John Wall for Porzingis and the Mavs, because those contracts lined up, and obviously Porzingis in Dallas it's not working out. Clearly, there's the relationship has been broken between Doncic and him. And, we've seen things get patched up in the past, whether it's, Mitchell and Gobert, but we shall see what happens with that. I mean, Luka is still, maturing as a player, but I wanted to send it to Doc. What do you think about possible trades that you might have thought of and destinations for John Wall, which we all can almost agree that this might be the worst contract in the NBA as far as,
It's pretty bad.
Top dollar. Yeah.
It's pretty bad, and you guys are more optimistic than I am. I don't think the Mavs would work because John Wall needs the ball in his hand, and Luka Doncic has one of the highest usage rates. And I get like the problem for problem, maybe new environment. The only team I could think of maybe would be the Knicks. And my reasoning behind that, they kind of have two washed up point guards, Derrick Rose and Kemba Walker. They can afford taking the cap hit. I think for New York, that's probably the biggest name they've had in a while. You match him with Julius Randle. John Wall always shows that in the Garden. Remember Christmas Day a couple of years ago? He had that 360 layup on there. That's probably the only one I can think of. I mean, he's making $44 million this year, and he has a $47 million player option next year, which he's probably going to pick up. People don't want to trade for that. And even if you're on the edge of winning a championship, you're probably going to have to get creative with the salary cap because that's a huge number to afford. I think a buyout is more realistic. Knicks are the only one that I can see.
Not in Houston, man. No way is Tillman swallowing $90 million.
No.
Just
hell no.
Houston's as cheap as they get, and they'll let him sit on the bench before, and I don't think they'd even allow that. So that's the thing that scares me is like you already made this decision public, and what if you can't find a trade partner? This is the worst contract I can think of. I mean, it's probably not as bad as like Josh Smith or somebody like that wasn't able to play whatsoever. You couldn't even put him on the floor as an asset. But New York, I mean, Kemba, I still have a little higher hopes than him. Yeah, I'd consider him on the way to being washed up. I mean, he's just had some bad injury luck, and he's not all predicated on athleticism like John Wall. And Derrick Rose, man, he's getting better every year as a backup role. He's on a great contract, and he's more of a two guard at this point. I think Derrick Rose is the way he's shooting lights out.
Yeah, and I think New York's comfortable taking a look at that. Kemba for low money, Derrick Rose still being a big part of Tibbs' offense, especially we saw how he relied on him and
low money.
And then
Kemba's the best deal in the league right now.
That's pretty true.
If he can go back to any even half of what he was doing, then yes.
Oladipo is
I think he's toast, man. I love Victor. I am so nervous and worried about Victor. There's nobody I want in this league.
He's so cheap, it's risk free now.
Yeah, he could be the best contract if he showed anything, but his athleticism, I think, is almost done.
For me, I think I agree with everything you guys said about John Wall. I don't think he's done. I don't think he's toast, but I do think that we're not going to see the consistency of what we saw of him early in his career just because, he's older now and his body's gone through all those injuries. I think what'll eventually happen is he's going to see that there's no real trade partner for him that he'd want to go to. So he's going to end up accepting a buyout and just going somewhere for cheap. But if there was a trade to happen, I think the only place that makes sense for me is OKC because they have cap space and they've got picks. And that team is so dramatically young, and they have nobody to really handle the ball. I think Shai is best used as a two, like a high usage rate two. And I think that John Wall being on that team would free him up and give him better matchups and do all of that. But I don't think OKC would do that because they got that young point guard out of Australia that they're gonna want to let him shake and give him some experience because he's like 18 or 19. So. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be a place I think would make sense.
Yeah, OKC would have to buy him out. I mean,
they would.
We can talk about
it. They wouldn't have to. They have $21 million in cap space, so they wouldn't have to. But it makes no sense for them to trade for him.
Well, John Wall, man, he'll go in there guns blazing, fighting. He wants to play basketball.
That's true.
And there's no way in hell John Wall won't be throwing gang signs up and lighting that bitch up. If they're going to make him sit on the sidelines.
No, if they traded for him, they'd play him. But I don't think it's going to happen.
In that case, no way. Like, why would you hinder the growth of Shai and Josh Giddey? And
Shai's here. I don't think of Shai as like a growing player. Shai's here to me. Like, I think If he's going to
this
be a
is
point guard,
ceiling? You think he's tapped?
yeah. Look at his number. What do you think? How much better do you think he can get?
Oh, I think he can become a top 10 guy in this league. I'm
You
that
think
high.
he's a Hall of Famer then? Because like
Yeah. No, I think he's that
okay.
good.
I know, I agree, but I think what he's done,
The
like
dude's
I
20,
think,
like two. Like
but I'm aware.
who's
No,
tapped at 22?
I mean, he had a 20 rebound game.
we were
That's
having.
very
I'm not
impressive.
Okay, so
capping him at all. I'm not capping him
Zach,
at all.
we were having this
Kid is 6'6", got a 6'11"
conversation.
wingspan.
We were having this conversation about Jaylen Brown, and James was saying that he thinks he's tapped out now, and I'm like, he's so young. Like, look at all the improvements he can make.
That's fair.
With Shai, I think he is tapped out because look at his numbers. Like, how much more can you do? And look at his usage. Like, where could he get better? I don't understand.
It's not
make
just
smarter
numbers.
decisions in the clutch. Like we saw that in OKC
Cut down
in
on
the
turnovers.
playoffs.
Exactly. So you want him to be a 2.
You can have less counting numbers. You can have less counting numbers and be a much better player. I can
right.
name
So
dozens
and that
of
would be
players
that would be him moving to the 2 spot. I think he's not a natural 1. He's
he
good at it.
6 assists last year, and that was on a bad team. I think if you put great players around him, I think he can get to 10 assists. So he can be that guy. But at the same time,
or if you just let him score and give him the role of a scorer.
Right. No,
and,
I think he can play 1 through 3. I really do offensively. No,
so
I'm not
let John
angry
Wall,
with you for having a take of him not being a true point guard. Don't get me wrong on that, because
sure.
that's why I value Shai so much too, because I think he's a guy that can be great in any role 1 through 3, and very few players out there can do that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why not pair him with John Wall, who we know is a known distributor?
Josh Giddey has to have. He's literally Ricky Rubio. Josh Giddey.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. I love Josh Giddey, and he's like a child. He's like 18, 19.
Was a bit of reach, but
it was, but he's worth it. I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if you're gonna draft him, you need to give him minutes. So it makes no sense for them to pick up John Wall. But if they're gonna like have him be like a developmental guy, why not? Why not have him learn?
I think Shai's so interchangeable with so many different lineups, and we saw him when he shot at the 3 ball at a 42% clip last year, and that was something that he improved mightily. Like, and he improved his field goal percentage, and he had an uptick. He was shooting 16 shots a game,
but
he shot
my
over
argument
50%. I just think that he's getting better in all.
So my argument is that, like, what do you think he's like? How can you get better than that? Like, what do you think he's gonna shoot going forward?
So I think he can get better. Passing, playmaking, intelligence,
decision making.
Like Coach said, but also rebounding. I mean, he only averaged 4.7 last year. He averaged 6 the year before. As a defender, I think he's got the talent to be an all defense type of defender. But I think he can average 28 if he wants to as well.
So I agree with that.
That's what I think. I think he can have an uptick in his scoring.
I think of him offensively as like he's an offensive juggernaut. I think that's best suited, like the rebounding, the defending, all of that. He's best suited to get better at if he's not a point guard. That's just how I look at it. I think point guard is so much responsibility.
Paths for him, and I could see that for sure.
Yeah, like point guard is so much responsibility, and you have to know so much and do so much that it's hard to get better at all of those. It's like being a quarterback. Like you can only focus on one or two things to get better on, and if you want them,
I think Sam Presti agrees with you.
Also,
he went to drafted Josh Giddey for a reason.
Exactly.
If I'm OKC, I don't want Teo Maledon trying to decide things on play to play. I'm gonna give the ball to my best guy. And the year before, we saw him break out, and he played with 2 other point guards in CP3 and
that's right,
Dennis Schroeder. So
that's right.
With all those draft picks, they're eventually gonna land on another superstar, and we'll see how that pairing works. So
maybe I don't. Cat.
There ain't no ceiling on Shai. The reason why I kind of said that about Jaylen Brown is because it's like he was averaging like 23, 24. I just don't see him. I don't have him taking the uptick to like 28.
There's another pod for another day.
But anyways, little plug talk. Wherever you find your podcast, go follow Triple Play Fantasy Franchise. Look out for our baseball, basketball, football pods that drop every week. Our Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel is dropping content every day. This includes Coach's Corner, Movie Minute Reviews, Super Fantasy Bros, Fantasy 15, Between the Seams, Fantasy Foodies. We recently sat down with former NBA veteran overseas extraordinaire, New Jersey Net, 2004 NCAA champion Josh Boone, who gave us a very candid, open conversation about not only his high school days, his college days, his NBA days, but also overseas play. Check us out on Twitter and IG at Triple Play Fantasy. Thanks again from the entire Triple Play Fantasy family for turning in. Zach, you got anything you want to plug?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. You're awesome. You're super knowledgeable and one of our best guests we had so far. So I just want to give you some kudos.
Much appreciate that. Means a lot, especially with an NBA player coming on. I'll take that. With that said, though, I'd love to talk rankings with you guys. We didn't get to that today, but had my list ready for you and whatnot. But with that said, please check out the Noble and Roosh Show by Ball is Life. You can catch me on Twitter, ZAKNOBLE, or else podcast anywhere you get them. Noble and Roosh Show by Ball is Life.